Do you ever happen to find yourself in a sticky situation like this? See all these stats and still have no idea how they work? Well, you've come to the right place. Today I will be explaining the statistics of WOG missiles, how to use them, and how to defend against them. However, before we get into that, let's talk about some other important things. First off, thank you everyone for subscribing. I gained like about 100 subs in the past week or two, and I'm very grateful for that. Also, thanks for everyone who participated in the giveaway. The winners are announced right here. If your name is on the screen, you've won. Congratulations. And finally, I've decided to open up a Discord server. I'm putting the link in the video right now as well as the description. And you guys will be able to play with me if you guys join that server. With that out of the way, let's start talking about the content of this piece. Oh, and one last thing. This is a pretty last second, but Ent has decided to give me a creator code. That's the code on screen right now, and it will give you 300 medals. So even if you didn't win the giveaway, you'll still be getting some medals from this channel. And for that, I have to thank you guys for your continued support of this channel. It's only because of your continued support do I have opportunities like this. So, to start off, let's talk about the metrics that we measure a missile in. These are the following metrics. So, we have locking aspect, max G, seeker field of view, seeker gimbal, seeker max range, enhanced locking, flare resistance, and engine power. Now, let's talk about what each of these specs mean. For the first spec, we have the G tolerance of a missile, and this basically defines how maneuverable the missile is. On screen right now is an AIM-9B, and it easily gets dodged by a simple maneuver like that. Meanwhile, maneuverable missiles like the AIM-9J, which has 22 Gs of pull, can easily pull very hard shots like that at very close range. The next spec I'm going to introduce is the locking aspect. Here we have two types, rear aspect and all aspect. This is a rear aspect missile and it's an early one. Rear aspect missiles can only lock the target if their engine is facing you. And as you see there, since it's a earlier one, the lock breaks the moment he turns away. Meanwhile, later all aspect missiles are able to lock from any direction, such as the AIM-9L on the F1, which is shown here, or the red top that appears on the Lightning. These missiles either have a minimum lock range or require the enemy to be at a set airspeed. Please note that the range that you can get your all aspect locked from is variable and depends on the enemy speed. Next up, we have the seeker statistics. These are the seeker FOV and the seeker gimbal. In game, the gimbal is represented by the larger circle and the seeker is represented by the smaller circle. Please note that stuff like the AIM-9B do not have a gimbal, so the entire thing is the seeker. It should also be noted that the seeker turns green when you have a lock and it plays the following sound. Now, let's talk about the following two statistics. Seeker size and gimbal limit. Seeker size is the size of a smaller circle, and it's what the missile sees. The missile does not see the whole gimbal limit, it just sees that tiny bit that is inside the smaller circle. For this statistic, bigger is not better. Let me explain why. As you can see here from the missile's perspective, these are the two different seeker size. As you can see, the bigger seeker sees more things, so it has a greater chance of seeing flares. That's why the AIM-9L's flare resistance was drastically reduced after its seeker size was increased. The next statistic we're going over is gimbal size. The gimbal is the thing that the seeker is placed on top of, and it has the ability to rotate in two directions. This allows for the seeker to be offset a certain distance. Unlike seeker field of view, bigger is better in this case. And as you can see, this is the difference between the R60 and the red top. As you can see, the red top can offset the seeker a lot more, allowing for the missile to be led a lot more. And it also has a bigger degree of freedom to track the target. The next statistic is the seeker's maximum range. This is pretty simple. It's just the maximum range a missile can lock at. Please keep in mind that it's not all of the numbers are 100% realistic, and most of them will never get close to their absolute maximum range. However, this can be used to judge range in an approximate fashion, and also you guys should also know that max range doesn't actually guarantee the missile will be able to get there. Next up is enhanced locking, also known as radar slaving. This basically places the seeker on top of the enemy aircraft. It is very useful because you don't have to move your nose in the right direction, and it also makes the missile considerably better in scenarios where the enemy is using flares. Here's a quick example of that. Also, here's a tip. If you guys do not have enhanced locking, press 4 to reset the seeker. Anyways, as you see here, the seeker continues to follow the target instead of going for flares. Now, we finally got into flare resistance. Ever since the 9L got its seekers nerfed to match the other AIM-9s, the flare resistance value is the only thing that affects flare resistance at the moment. The flare resistance value is a constant that divides the heat of a flare. A flare's base heat is 5, and with flare resistance values, it just divides that by that number. Most missiles have a flare resistance of 1, meanwhile the AIM-9L has a flare resistance of 4. What this means is that the flares are about 4 times less hot to the AIM-9L than it is to other missiles that do not have flare resistance. Basically, your flares are less hot, so the missile is less likely to go for it. Also, the heat of flares varies with the distance it is from the missile, so longer range shots are less flare resistant. Furthermore, if you're on the receiving end of a flare resistant missile, you should always drop your burner if it's too close. Otherwise, the missile will cut through your flares and kill you. And one last thing, flare resistance does not work in a frontal launch, and it's very iffy at side aspect launches, so don't cross your fingers on those.
That tracked for some reason. What the
Finally, we've arrived at the last thing, which is the kinematic performance of a missile. This is affected by two things, the motor power and the mass. In-game, the missile's engines are measured in newtons, and 1 newton is able to accelerate a 1 kilogram object by 1 meter per second squared. Either way, that's not very important. What you need to know is that the more thrust the engine puts out, the faster the missile is going to accelerate. But also, if the missile is heavier, it's going to accelerate slower. Therefore, the quick-burning, high-thrust motors will allow their missiles to travel quickly at short distance, but they also struggle to fly far due to the lack of continued propulsion. Meanwhile, the slower-burning motors trade short-range performance for sustained and long-range performance. The AIM-9B is the first Sidewinder in the game. It's not very impressive, and it does not have a gimbal. The R3S is a Soviet reverse-engineered AIM-9B with a larger seeker and a small increase in mass. The AIM-9F is a AIM-9B upgraded with a gimbal. The AIM-9E is the USAF upgrade of the AIM-9B, featuring an improved shape and a gimbal. The AIM-9J is a upgraded AIM-9E with flare resistance and more maneuverability. The 9P is an export variant. The AIM-9D is the Navy upgrade of the AIM-9B. It has a long burning motor, long range, good G tolerance, and flare resistance. The AIM-9G is a upgraded AIM-9D featuring more range and more flare resistance, as well as support for enhanced locking. AIM-9L is a upgraded AIM-9G with more maneuverability, flare resistance, and lock range, as well as all aspect capabilities. However, the motor is worse and it weighs more. The Magic 1 is a French missile that offers superb short-range performance with its powerful motor and high G tolerance. The Soviet R-60A is a lightweight, maneuverable 30G missile that has most features and is carried in large quantities. The British Firestreak has middling performance, but is also the only stock missile that features enhanced locking. The British Red Top is a limited all-aspect missile that can lock fast-moving targets. This missile has great lock range, but not the best long-range performance. It also has the biggest gimbal in the game. Alright, so at this point the video has concluded, and thanks for coming and watching till the very end. You guys are the people who support my channel the most, and I'm really grateful for that. And I've been trying to improve my video quality for a while now, and this is basically my most ambitious project yet, so thank you so much for watching to the end. There's been a lot of things that I've done this video in terms of editing and others. Every single animation in this video was done from scratch. I wasn't using any templates or anything. And even the thumbnail had a lot of work put into it. The missile that is in the thumbnail is not in the game. The model, at least, is not in the game. I made that myself in Blender just for the thumbnail. So for all of you guys, thanks for supporting this channel so much. You guys are the reason why I continue making these videos. So thanks for your support. I never thought I'd get this far, but you guys proved me wrong. And I'm not gonna ask for this again, but you guys are probably subscribed at this point. But if you're not, if I provided you value with today's video, how about you provide me some value in return by subscribing? Anyways, that's a little bit of a behind the scenes little ramble that I got here. So the video is basically over now. Feel free to click off.